I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement that I'm putting in the chat and saying for myself, I'm coming from Harlem, New York City. And as I read our land acknowledgement, if you are coming from somewhere else and you know the indigenous people who tended the land that you're living on before any of us got there, you're welcome to put that in the chat. So every community owes its existence and vitality to the generations from around the world who contributed their hopes and dreams and energy in making history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life. And some have lived on this land for more generations than they can counted. So I'd like to begin today by acknowledging that I am coming from Harlem, New York City, and I am standing and sitting on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Munsee Lenape people. We pay respect to their elders, past and present, and please take this moment to consider the many legacies of violence and displacement and migration and settlement that bring us together here today and bring each of us where we are. So thank you. A reminder that this call is off the press record and closed to the press. So if you are here in press capacity, this is totally off the record. You're welcome to join us in your personal capacity, but none of this may be shared. And with that, I believe this is where I have the pleasure of handing this over to our leader, Hope Singson, who will begin to take us through our meeting. Hope.
Yeah, hey everybody. I just want to say welcome again. So excited. We're up to 57 people. We had like 140 signups today, so I'm sure folks will continue joining. And we are recording, so we'll share it with everybody that couldn't make it. You have arrived at the kickoff party of our group, Target Majority NYC. We're one of the oldest, largest, and most active swing left groups in NYC. We've helped Democrats increase turnout in pivotal swing districts since March 2017. And our mission as a group is to help you have the highest possible impact on the elections and issues like democracy, racial justice, and climate that are existential for our people and our planet. And that is why in 2021, we also became an indivisible group to effectively advocate for progressive issues and build power no matter who's in government. This year, we are also really excited to be joining forces for maximum impact with a fantastic fellow swing left group, Swing Left Manhattan. And I want to invite Frank, one of the leaders of that group, to come off mic and say a little word, because we have some of your members joining us today for the first time.
Thanks, Hope. On behalf of Swing Left Manhattan and all of our members and the leadership team, my sister Ruth, as well as Ron and Diane Blum and Terry Preston, I just want to say how delighted we are to join with Target Majority NYC. Swing Left Manhattan was a relatively small group of Manhattanites interested primarily in supporting nearby local races in Pennsylvania, as well as the Biden-Harris campaign in that critical state in 2020. Through mainly letter writing, phone text banking, some fundraising, we had hoped to do a lot of canvassing and that's how we wanted to work in close proximity in Pennsylvania, but of course, COVID took its toll and we weren't able to do that. We believe that while bigger is not always better, merging with Target Majority will give us greater access to opportunities and resources, and look forward to working with Hope and the rest of the Target Majority team, and particularly hoping that we will be able to do canvassing, and I think a lot of our members will be able to contribute to that effort of Target Majority in particular.
That's fantastic. And I just want to say on behalf of our group how ecstatic we are to have Ruth and Frank and the members of Swing Left Manhattan working with us, as I said, for maximum impact. And we can't wait to be in Pennsylvania together. So I'll pass it back to Jason.
So yeah, it's perhaps a little early to ask for a second date, but we feel so confident that you're going to want to at least come back to some of the things we're doing. We wanted to get a survey right away that I'm going to launch. This is a poll. It's a multiple choice poll, so you should be able to click everything that applies, any dates that applies to you. What we'd like to know is just what are the best times for you to attend meetings and events? And we've listed a range of options from several time slots on Saturdays, three time slots on Sundays, also weeknights, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. So if you could be clicking all of them that are good for you, that will help us as we begin to think ahead of when we want to call meetings and do many of the great actions that we'll be talking about going forward.
I just wanted to share, you may have noticed we do have everyone muted on this call because we are a beautiful, robust group of 72 and counting. And we do hope, though, that you will share questions in the chat, as I see some folks already doing, which is great. We'll return to them at certain moments. And actually, I wanted to also call out, and if David, you can put in the chat for folks, you can access our slides yourself while we're presenting or tomorrow, anytime you wish. There's even more information in the speaker notes of our slides than we can even cover today because we have so much we want to share. We are going to go through our mission, our strategy, what's at stake, high impact actions that you can take. We're going to have some discussion about that in breakout rooms. Then we're all going to make our commitments for how we're going to win this year and make sure that you know about our upcoming skill building workshops that we're really excited to share. And now actually we'd love to use the chat to hear from you about your hopes and fears. What's on the top of your mind? What's waking you up at night? What's getting you jazzed? This year is such a key year. We'd love to be hearing from you. So just take a moment and put in the chat, why are you here today? What are your hopes and fears for this year? And Jason and Leslie, maybe you all could take turns sharing some of that vocally.
So I'm seeing Alicia saying voting rights. Yeah, voting rights, that they'll be very hard hit.
Reva's talking about fear of losing the majority.
Jim, sorry, Jim, yeah, vital to hold the House and the Senate, says Jim.
Bridget was talking about fear of racism and division in the country. Voting rights coming up again.
Yeah, lots about the voting rights and our majority in the House and the Senate. Rolling back of democracy.
And the fact that the press is so negative toward Biden, from Evelyn.
Riva making the connection to climate action and losing this opportunity we have for climate action.
Steve talking about the Republican fascist takeover in multiple ways, in gerrymandering and voting courts, in the voter suppression.
Christine about civil discourse and uniting our country. Thank you.
And on a positive note, hopes to keep the House and increase 2 to 3 seats in the Senate. Yes.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Thank you, Rose.
Jennifer's concerned about turnout. Big, that's our big thing. Not enough people going out to vote in 2022. Absolutely, turnout.
That's great. Thank you, everybody, for all of these. Concern for our democratic republic. Yeah, climate. All of it's connected. And we are right there with you, feeling how high the stakes are. And I want to share, we're going to go through some reasons for hope, some reasons to feel excited about the impact that we can have. And actually, that is our mission. We're here to amplify your impact. I want to just introduce you if you're not familiar with Swing Left. I'm not going to go through all these data points, which is one of the reasons that we shared the link to the slides, which we can do again. But Swing Left, I like to say it's people power backed by data. Swing Left specializes in targeting tight winnable races and helping us work there with the highest impact actions. So the point is that they use their data and political analysis to guide massive numbers of grassroots volunteers like us to concentrate where we can do the most good. So the tightest winnable races where our effort could be the deciding factor potentially in putting our candidate over the top. And in the process, Swing Left has become the single largest partner, the largest outside partner for the Democratic Party in some key races. And I'll just call out, in 2019 and 2021, We were the largest outside partner to the VA Dems in that 2020 Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. Again, we were the largest outside partner. And in this table, the data is a little outdated, and there is a link here to see the 2020 data broken down by every state and what Swing Left did, which again, you can go to our slides and click through to that link if you're curious. But back in 18, you can see how the door knocks, the letters, and the fundraising dollars really can be surmised. We'll never know exactly who voted because of our action, but using data, using research-tested methods of extrapolation, we believe that we may have turned voters out at numbers that did swing the margin of the election, for example, for Andy Kim in New Jersey. So the other thing that our group does is we do, as much as we can, we focus on targets that will, just by where they are in the map, multiply your impact. So if there is a state legislative district that's nested inside a state Senate district where there's also a U.S. House seat that is tight but winnable, where there's also a Senate seat to be flipped, where there's also a governor seat to hold or flip, and then in presidential years where we can also flip the presidential race. We have sometimes called these super duper districts. Every voter that you talk to, that you door knock, that you write a letter to, that you give money to that candidate in that district, that voter is going to be able to pull the lever, 3, 4, 5 times on key critical races. So it's not always possible. It's not the only indicator of what's worth doing, but it is something that we like to do so that every hour, every dollar that you're spending is getting the maximum impact. So with that, here is our strategy for 22. As many of you have already expressed, we are focused on holding and even expanding, if we could, our U.S. House majority, holding and, yes, expanding our Senate majority, and building power in the states. I think I'm preaching to the choir when I say that one cinema and mansion blocked us from doing anything at the federal level to stop GOP voter suppression and election sabotage happening at the state level. The midterms got even more important than they already were, because holding the House and expanding the Senate is how we can still pass crucial laws to outlaw those GOP state laws before Trump runs again, probably in 24. This year, we are also viewing a lot of those state level races as federal in importance to our democracy, because we need to have Dems in place in those governor mansions and state legislatures to uphold fair elections and prevent GOP subversion, as we saw attempted in 2020. So with all of that in mind, here is our map. So this is the Swing Left map using their data analysis for the tightest but winnable races. Where there's a star, we're going to be focused on state legislatures. The G is for governor, S is for Senate. And because we're still waiting for the U.S. House maps in many cases, not all of the blue to red, some of it is ghosted because we're still waiting. We are where it is bright pink, we are seeing 4 or more U.S. House targets to hold or try to flip. And lighter blue, or blue is there are no targets for us to work on in that state. And in between is fewer targets so far. So I just want to call out for us as a New York City based, when we're in real life, we are in New York City, and most of us. So our closest swing state with a triple hitter is Pennsylvania, as always. It's our favorite swing state. So we are definitely planning to go in person, and because voter contact in person is the most effective form of persuading someone how to vote or to vote, getting them registered. And just to call out that we are going to continue seeing U.S. House races adopted by Swing Left as the maps get finalized. Overall in the House, it may be news to you, it was to me, that the competitive number of seats actually has shrunk compared to 2018 and 2020 due to the new maps that have been drawn. the choices that the GOP has made, because they hold most of the states, the choices that they've made actually have consolidated their seats to be stronger, but it's reduced the impact of redistricting compared to what we had expected. So the GOP may only net 3 to 4 seats, which means that we are really critically focused on any pickups that we can make as Democrats, and we do actually expect to have some potential flips and pickups in our own state of New York. So that is exciting. In the US Senate map, as you may already be aware, we have 3 holds and 3 potential flips. So we are trying to hold on to our Democrats in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia, our beloved Reverend Warnock. And we are looking at opportunities to flip in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, which is truly exciting. The gubernatorial map actually is pretty incredible if you think about it. We've got, with how important these governor races are to defending our democracy and our elections in 24, the big 3 that gave Trump his win, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, are all having governor's elections this year, where we really need to hold those. And the critical surprise, Arizona and Georgia states that helped so decisively elect Biden are also electing the governors. And as far as Florida, all I can say is how delightful would it be if we could replace DeSantis. State legislative targets. Swing Left has analyzed the map here and identified Arizona, Michigan, and New Hampshire as short-term targets where we have the ability to make a real difference immediately in, taking control of a chamber potentially. Medium term, and very important to be working on now in order to get there, are Georgia, North Carolina, our own Pennsylvania, and Texas. I just want to call out, initially I didn't realize that state legislatures in this cycle are also of federal importance, because in some state legislatures like Pennsylvania, they are actually taking steps to enact an end run around the governor. So in Pennsylvania, during COVID, during the pandemic, they passed a constitutional ballot initiative, which gave them the right to set COVID policies instead of the governor, an end run. They're now using that as a tactic like gangbusters. So they are definitely trying constitutional ballot initiatives on electoral control. So we may not get there in Pennsylvania in terms of taking control of one of the chambers, but if we can we need to work as hard as we possibly can to do that in order to ensure that the election isn't rigged in 24. And that's just one of the reasons that, just like in 2020, truly this is a midterm, a monumental midterm, unlike any other, where everything is at stake. We know that we have had these amazing electoral victories, and they were just the beginning. We've made really great progress. These are some of the accomplishments of the last year that we really have to hold on to and celebrate and counter the narrative and our own disappointment, frankly, of course. But when you actually stack up how much Trump accomplished in his first year and how much Biden accomplished in his first year, I believe actually Biden is winning. So, the glass needs to be half full right now. And it just got so much fuller with this incredible, historic, ecstatic opportunity to place historically the first Black woman jurist on the Supreme Court, which I believe is going to happen. And then what's next? We all know we're going to continue having important policy to set around the pandemic. Climate change couldn't be more urgent. Voting rights has to happen next year. All of these things. Protecting abortion access after we probably lose Roe later this year. And childcare, which if we can increase our Senate majority, we can do something about, because Manchin won't have the deciding vote. So, of course, behind everything at the top of our minds is the democracy itself, which is still fragile. Even though an unprecedented wave of grassroots energy was seen over the past 4 years to defeat Trump, give Democrats unified control of the federal government. The Republican Party continues its power grabs, just doing everything it can to undermine the integrity of future elections. I'm not going to ask all of us to sit in too much of our anxiety about this, which I know you're here and probably like me, it's waking you up at night. But I do actually think it's important to share some of the factual detail, which honestly I'm still only learning about myself, and it only clarifies my own sense of urgency about the stakes in this year's election and why I am personally changing my plans for the year, to be honest, putting aside some of my personal goals because this is so important to me, and I know it's so important to you. So again, without hopefully staying too long in what's very uncomfortable, I want to share some information. You may have seen this quote, and I'm sure you share this perspective that Republicans, I mean, they demonstrably can't win on their own ideas, and that's why they're spending so much time suppressing votes. Here's some of the headlines that you probably have been seeing about the votes at the state level, you know, the laws that were passed in this last year. We're seeing them intensify voter suppression, empower voter harassment and intimidation, and pave the way for election sabotage. There are actually even worse laws that are already pre-registered in many states to come up for votes that would do away with no excuse vote by mail and early voting, that will change the rules of who votes, who decides the elections, and who counts or doesn't count the votes. And some that would literally allow MAGA partisans to change election results. Some would criminalize the standard practice of many election officials. So for example, you know, in Texas, they're trying to make it a felony to inform voters of the right to request a mail ballot. If you think about like a gag rule on telling someone they have the option and the right to request a mail ballot. The reason I'm sharing this disturbing information is that it has also been shown through recent polls that very few Americans are really tuned into this yet. And I feel we have a role to play as the ones who are awake to this, as the ones who are worried about it, to start talking to our friend and family networks, and not in a alarmist way, not in a fear-mongering way, but in a factual way, just checking in if people are aware of this. I just did this over the holidays, and you know, people near and dear to me they are not aware. It's not in the news yet. There's so much else going on. So this is why I wanted to share it. And I just want to recap what I think we all know, and trigger alert, I'm going to show a Confederate flag and image of the insurrection, but you know, we're basically looking at the campaign of the MAGA extremists to sabotage our democracy and steal power that's out in the open now, which had been building really since 2015 and before. And as we know, you know, on January 6th, Trump called on his followers to overthrow the Constitution for autocracy. I want to credit some of these slides also to the bi-weekly movement briefings that are run by ISRM researchers and Mike Podhauser of the AFL-CIO. You may have heard the research that just came out recently that revealed what we already knew, that the driving force behind MAGA and the insurrectionist movement is blatant white supremacy. Recent studies showed that 21 million Republicans now believe political violence is justified, and what's equally shocking, the research shows that it's urban and suburban, late millennials and Gen Xers for whom white supremacy is their most defining ideology. So this is all alarming, but it's all the natural extension of what we've already been seeing and recognizing since 2015, and honestly all the way back to Lee Atwater and the Nixon administration through Reagan and Grove and et al. You know, it's right now it couldn't be clearer that they are motivated by a belief that it's too easy for people of color to vote and too difficult to overturn the elections. And in these orange boxes, you can see all the pillars of this campaign that have been operating, as I said, really in the open, all of them now in the open. So with that, I want to just sort of invite us all to take a deep breath, because this is obviously really upsetting stuff. And I want to counter it with a note of balance. You may have seen The Atlantic keeps running articles that say, like, it's all over, everybody give up. It's not. It is not all over. 20 million is a shockingly high number, but do not forget how small it is. It's a drop in the bucket in the population of the US. Our democracy isn't about to die, according to this article in the New Republic, which yes, thank you, David, put that link in the chat. Please go read it. Take heart. We have the power to stop it. And we are going to stop it, because we are the guardrails of the democracy. We have done it again and again. People power is real. We have won every time. It's been us versus Trump or extreme Trumpism. And this year we can do it again. We just need people to see the election as clearly and starkly as we do, as urgent as a presidential year. I'm calling it 2020 plus. Because our voting rights, democracy, next presidential election are all on the ballot in the midterms. I want to also take a moment and just catch everybody up on what I've been hearing about the continuing fight for voting rights, because that was obviously a gut punch to get so close and not cross the finish line of fixing the filibuster, thanks to Sinema and Manchin. But it's really important to know Common Cause is one of the partners we worked with since spring, and they are continuing some extremely important work. So we just wanted to share links for you to continue working with them and call out what we accomplished, what we as a group and we as a coalition accomplished. We moved mountains, and this movement is not stopping. So at the beginning of the year, I just want you to know Manchin intended to totally ignore voting rights until we started mobilizing his constituents with the phone banks that we ran through Common Cause, patching his constituents straight through to his office to leave messages in support. Overall, working with all across the country, targeting all the moderate Democrats who we moved, we patched almost 10,000 constituents through to their senators. This was a huge operation, a scale of activation never seen before with this tactic. We placed 2.75 million calls to these states, and 48 moderates got in line and all demand a filibuster fix. So many of them were not there at the beginning of last year, and they reported to Pelosi and Klobuchar and Schumer, who all met with our coalition leaders regularly. They would say they're feeling the heat. So what they're going to do next with these patch through calls is they're going to target the state laws I just listed. They're going to call constituents and have them call their state legislators to push back on these state laws. A lot of those really egregious sabotage laws were attempted last year and did not pass. We may be able to stop more of those this year. So also they're going to mount a huge voter protection program, which is going to be key, as it was in 2020. This is really important work, and I just wanted to call it out at this time. The other thing that, of course, is our really important work is what our group is going to be more focused on, which is the midterms. So I wanted to just let you know, I'm sure you've been hearing about the historic trend. If a first-term president holds both chambers of Congress and has a federal trifecta, they always lose, a lot of seats. We have an equally historic advantage that no other first-term president has ever had as the wind at their back. So 1.7, and I actually don't remember if this is a million or billion, but the point here is the relative scale. This first bar in the graph is who voted in 2016 in our constituents. And then in 2018, we banked through the work of grassroots volunteers like you and me, we got millions more new voters. This is newly activated voters involved, and we only increased that in 2020. Now, no president has entered the midterms with such an enormous bank of newly, freshly activated voters for their party. This is how we got to this day, and it is how we're getting to this day. We can do it. We just need to mobilize our people like we have done before, and we can do it again. And I'm going to just take another deep breath because I have to tell you, I'm still feeling all of that ickiness. But remember the vision of what is, keep our eyes on the prize, that we are working to become the American nation that has never been but must be. The beautiful Lyson Hughes poem, the full poem is available in a link on this slide. We have the opportunity, if we can achieve these goals, to pass civil rights laws that are the most transformational since the original 1960s laws, and we can get there. So I want to just reorient, take a deep breath and say, when we wake up, after the midterms, November 9, later this year, what feelings do you want? What are we working toward? What do you want to feel on the morning of Wednesday, November 9, 2022? Yeah. And Jason and Leslie, you can jump in and please.
So if there were a word cloud, we'd see a lot of relief. Redeemed. Faith.
Exhilarated.
And I
Proud.
saw left it all on the field.
And proud. Proud of what we've done.
Yeah, Catherine, I tried to make a difference. That means so much to know you did we all did what we could, and to know that for ourselves. Hopeful, yep. Jennifer. Proud of America.
I love that. Wouldn't that be so good to be proud of America again? Momentum. I like that because there's going to be a lot ahead after that. That's great. Okay, so empowered. Go ahead and
optimistic. It would be nice to feel optimistic more often, right?
Yeah, we could get things done, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, what a contrast it's going to be if we can expand our Senate, hold our House. Whew. Yeah, that's like a drink of cold water. So I'm going to move into outlining those high impact actions, that is our reason for being and what Swing Left really helps us to focus on, so that we know every hour, every day, every trip, every dollar, we're getting as close as we can to all of these incredibly important and beautiful goals. Swing Left helps us prioritize tactics that are proven through research to have the greatest impact in turning out voters. So we're going to be focusing on canvassing, letter writing, phone banking, and fundraising. And I'm going to actually hand it first to Eric and members of the core team to share about the work we've done and are planning to do on all of these tactics.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm a member of the core team and active since late 2017. One of the things that I like to focus on is canvassing and doing voter registration and voter get out the vote. And one of the things we'll be doing is high traffic canvassing, going to spots with many passersby, having face-to-face conversations with people. And I can tell you that in Pennsylvania, people are more friendly than in New York City when you do that. The first event where people will be going out to a high traffic canvas area is February 26th. And then we'll be organizing canvases and high traffic canvassing areas to register voters and get out the vote till Election Day. Now, this has proven to be the most effective way of getting new voters and getting them out to vote and having the impact on whether people vote. So that's Registering new voters is going to be very important. In Pennsylvania, we sort of lost ground, actually, in registering voters to the Democratic side in 2020 and 2021. I think the main reason is because of COVID. We stopped doing on the ground canvassing as much, but we are re-gearing up to do that, and lots of organizations are doing that, and we'll be partnering with them in Pennsylvania. We'll be doing that through COVID conscious carpools and New Jersey Transit, going to places where we can be picked up and taken to the high traffic canvassing areas. And the COVID conscious carpools will, we're going to make sure that everybody's vaxxed and boosted and wearing masks and keeping air circulation, so it'll all be safe.
I am jumping back in here. So yeah, some people have already asked in the chat, well, what about door-to-door canvassing? And the answer is yes, we are definitely looking forward to door-to-door canvassing. Just to define, that means as opposed to being in one high traffic area, it means that we are walking through a neighborhood with assigned target houses. So generally we are knocking on doors that we think are friendly or open to our message or our candidates. We are, many of our group actually met canvassing door to door back for the 2017 in New Jersey for Tom Malinowski. That's sort of where a lot of us came together. And this, we are looking starting in the spring after the primary, because with Swing Left, we're primary agnostic and we wait till the state has nominated its candidates. So after the primary, we would begin showing up in person to have conversations about the marquee candidates, such as Attorney General Joseph Shapiro for governor, who we think is really going to make a strong candidate, and also impress on them how important it is to vote up and down their ballot on the Democratic ticket. As Eric mentioned, both with voter registration and with canvassing, with COVID, the Republicans really got ahead of us. They certainly started way earlier canvassing Virginia in the spring and the summer. And we know that generally they were doing canvassing in person in 2020 that we weren't doing. So we are definitely looking at beginning to do in our target areas in Pennsylvania right away, hopefully in the spring, begin house canvassing. I'm going to pass it to, I'm passing it to
Frank.
To Frank to talk about fundraising.
Okay, thanks, Jason. The slide notes the core fundraising mission to raise money as soon as possible to enable our candidates to get a head start and compete with well and often better funded opponents. Now, here at Target Majority, we're going to concentrate on being as effective as possible with our fundraising efforts. And with the help of Swing Left and other national organizations, we'll be identifying critical state and federal races in our target states that really need additional funds. But here is the important part. We don't want to make the mistake of putting our resources into these high-profile races where high-profile candidates don't really have a chance to win. Some data show that every year, as much as 50% of all fundraising money goes to races that aren't even competitive. And so we're going to keep our eye out on that. And also it's important to avoid recommending races that already have more money than they could use effectively. So I think with those combined positive and cautionary notes, we will be able to give our members some great assistance as to where to put their money. And one final thing, we're also going to try to find, and we will find, non-candidate options for fundraising that may be even more effective than contributing to a particular campaign. I think we all saw in the runoff in Georgia in last January, that groups of grassroots organizations, fundraising for grassroots organizations. There was a group that were identified by Fair Fight Action and others that were really the most important way to help with the get out to vote in that state. So campaigns, yes, but also other grassroots organizations that are going to do the kind of work we do and help make these campaigns successful. Ken, I think you're next.
Oh, and thank you. I also wanted to call out that there is an app called Blueprint that Swing Left recommends, which lets you set a monthly donation and forget it. So you set it and forget it, and you're always supporting a really strategic fund. So I'll be sharing a link to that in the follow-up to this meeting. Sorry, go ahead, Ken.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Hope and Frank. So especially if you were with us in the lead up to the 2020 election, you know that our group loves virtual phone banks and was running them 7 days a week until that time. The idea behind virtual phone banking is to make phone calls to register Democrats and persuadable undecideds while on a Zoom call joined with other volunteers, all working toward the same goal. We plan to do these weeknights in the spring ahead of the Pennsylvania primary. And then in the late fall, when we're into the high get out the vote season, it'll be a high priority then as well. They are always an excellent way to get voters the information they need to counter confusing rules, and voter suppression will help to send but will help folks to send their mail-in ballots on time and fix any technical errors if their mail ballot was rejected to make sure that their vote counts. We'll probably be running a bit fewer phone banks this year than in 2020 in favor of more in-person work, as was mentioned earlier. But especially when we get down close to election day, phone banking is a very valuable tool in the set. So with that, I will pass it to Steve.
Yes, we're going to do letter writing again. For those of you who are not interested, are not familiar with it, we partner with Vote Forward, which does a fabulous job of pulling together lists of low propensity voters who are less likely to vote in every election. And what they do is they get a handwritten envelope. And how many of us have gotten handwritten envelopes in the recent past? You're going to open that envelope, as many of our recipients do, and get a little reminder and encouragement to vote. And we've been doing some testing with Vote Forward, and they've come up with some techniques and some ideas for making these letters even more impactful than they were. I believe that they increased turnout in the 2020 election by 0.8%, which is a huge bump. And in off-year elections where fewer people vote, Vote Forward letters make an even bigger impact. So we're going to be running workshops on how to add your personal story to your Vote Forward letters and make it an even more impactful way to increase turnout. Who's next? I think you are, Hope.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the data, 0.8 may not sound as impressive as it is, because we're talking in a presidential cycle when the media is saturated to the max. So for a single tactic to demonstrate any effect is incredible. And that's the basis, actually, of some of the information we're about to share. So normally you might expect to see 0.2 percentage in a presidential cycle, and we got 0.8. So with that, I'm going to hand it to David to go over some more of this information about what we're planning. The only thing that's more impactful than a Vote Forward letter is showing up in person, is our takeaway from the data.
Great, thank you, Hope. I'm David, another core team member. Little background, in 2020, Vote Forward organized what they called the Big Send. And earlier that year, they had planned to send out 3 million letters to voters. The program took off and exploded, and we actually ended up sending out 17.5 million letters to voters in 19 swing states. And as Hope said, randomized controlled trials had shown a 0.8% bump up in voter participation, which is absolutely huge. And I'll show you some examples of that in a couple of slides. But we are planning and working with Vote Forward to send an even bigger Big Send between now, or really mid-February, to the election day. We are planning to send letters into now 26 states. So I'm going to urge everyone, if they haven't already signed up at voteforward.org to do so. And if you can also, there's a link to a recorded presentation on the data, which is really interesting to see. If you don't know, most of the Vote Forward letters are letters that are sent to underrepresented voters, young people, many women, single mothers, many people of color, and we are really just urging them to vote. And we're doing so by giving them personal stories that we hope will inspire them to vote. And as Steve said, the letters are partly handwritten. The envelopes are fully handwritten, and because of that, we think we get a really high sort of opening and read the letter rate. If you do go on to Vote Forward, it's important to select political lists as opposed to social lists. And the difference is Vote Forward has lists that are more likely, the political lists are more likely to be Democrats and likely Democrats, and than the social lists, which it's really a difference in how data is processed and its effect on Vote Forward's status as a tax-exempt organization. So let's go on. Yes, the next slide. So in 2020, Vote Forward's letters is among the highest impact programs ever measured in a presidential election, and that's really huge. I mentioned that if we go on to the next slide, Hope, that we mentioned a 0.8% bump up in voter participation. In terms of numbers of votes, in Arizona, 0.8% generated 7,040 votes. The win margin was 10,457. So you can see right there that it made a difference. In Georgia, it was even closer. 0.8% is 12,403 votes. The win margin was 12,670. In Wisconsin, we were able to get 2,329 extra votes based on a 0.8% increase. Win margin would have been 20,000. So big difference, right? The biggest difference was that we sent far few letters to voters in Wisconsin than we did in Arizona and Georgia. So it's very tight, but it makes a huge difference. The other thing about Vote Forward letters is that they're very popular with many, many of our volunteers. So we are able to engage people all winter and summer and early fall before the final get out of the vote action happens. We're able to bank huge numbers of letters and to get people working productively and enthusiastically. And that's super important. A relatively new development in the letters is developing personal stories for the reason why you vote, which is part of the Vote Forward letter. You give a voter your reason for voting. And there are techniques to developing your personal stories that make your letters even more impactful and therefore increase the effectiveness of those letters. So we'll be running workshops on Sundays and Wednesdays in February to show you how our techniques for how we come up with your personal stories. And let's see, if you love letter writing, if you're really enthusiastic, we invite you to join us and host letter writing parties on your own this spring. If you're interested in doing that, we are happy to help you do the first 1 or 2 parties and really get you going. It's really fun. Whether you do it in person, like out at say a coffee shop once it's warm enough to be outside, or you do a virtual party, it's really fun to do. So we'd love to have more people join us as hosts. And we will have free stamps and pre-printed letters available for those who would like those. So that's something to bear in mind moving forward. So I think that's it. I'll turn it
Yeah,
back to Hope.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, David. And on this slide, I'll just point out the study was very small. It was a New Mexico special congressional election. But if you look at this chart, you can see the red bar was no letter was sent to that voter, and this is how much they turned out. The usual vote forward letter, write whatever you want as an answer to I vote in every election because. And then with the story written using this special approach to really get personal and appeal to people's heartstrings, it actually doubled, relative to the no letter people, how many people went and voted. Now, it's a small election, it's a special congressional, like you're going to get the biggest bang for the letter that you send, but it's pretty encouraging. So this is why we're very excited to take something that's been so proven to be so effective that it was declared the most effective if you can't go in person, and now make it even stronger. But the most impact that you can possibly have is in person. And from New York, we are going to be hitting Pennsylvania. So I just wanted to introduce you to some of the marquee candidates that are going to be running. And that's really important and exciting because if you have somebody very exciting at the top of the ticket, we've all heard about the coattails. It boosts turnout down ballot and it boosts turnout statewide. And the great news that I just learned from our most senior contact in Pennsylvania is that they couldn't be more ecstatic about Josh Shapiro running for governor in Pennsylvania. They describe him as an excellent campaigner. It's an uncontested primary because you'd be crazy to run against him. He's won statewide office twice before, and he even won when Clinton lost. He outperformed Biden in a lot of regions of the state. And anyway, he's very exciting. And in the Senate race, there are 4 great candidates. It reminds one a little bit of our Democratic primary for president. And right now, what the prognosticators say, it's probably going to be either Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman or U.S. House Rep Connor Lamb. Connor Lamb is fairly moderate, but has come out and said he would change the filibuster rules. And he's racking up the most endorsements so far. So we will stay tuned. Whoever Pennsylvania wants is who we will support. You may fall in love with another candidate, but we're going to get behind whoever we've got and hope that they are super exciting for Pennsylvanians. And just to continue kind of setting context about our work in Pennsylvania, I want to share this slide. It's a little intense, but the basic gist is if it's a hash line bar, and you can look at our slides and look at this in more detail. And actually, David, wouldn't hurt to share that link to our slides again. The hash lines are where voter registration was at between red Republican, blue Democrat before shutdown in 2020. The solid lines are what happened after shutdown. And the really surprising effect that we saw in 2020, we really fell behind. We have a big voter registration deficit from 2020 where the Republicans, we were beating Republicans 2-1 in 18 to 24. And somehow, because we weren't out there in person, Republicans actually bested us even in the 18 to 24 age set. Similarly, we were almost doubling them 25 to 34, and they didn't quite double us, but maybe increased by a third how many they registered in that age bracket. And you can see it's also true that we were outperforming them 35 to 44, and they almost doubled us there too. So we are really going to focus on voter registration here for the next couple months. Whether that's high traffic, whether that's door knocking, we will take the cues of our partners in Pennsylvania. But we're really excited, and we know a lot of you are too, to get out there and register voters. And we will do it strategically in locations where we believe we're going to reach Democrats. So I'm going to pass the mic to Ruth to actually walk through some more of the details about Pennsylvania and where we're going to concentrate. And Ruth, do you need an invitation to unmute?
Sorry, I'm Ruth, and I've come from Swing Left Manhattan. Our goal in Pennsylvania is to increase Democratic turnout for these races for Senate and governor, as well as selected state legislative races. Now, this map that's on the screen shows pretty vividly that Philadelphia has the highest concentration of Democratic voters. So it's the most obvious close target for doing this. But numerous of our allies in Pennsylvania, including Turn Pennsylvania Blue, which is our biggest ally that many of you probably remember from the last election, have said that right now they have quite a number of volunteers working in Philadelphia. So they're encouraging us to start our work elsewhere. So we're starting in Bucks County, and which is in that gray area, just a bit north and east of Philadelphia, where I've actually had quite a bit of experience working on both congressional and state legislative campaigns in 2018 and 2020. The county used to be solidly Republican, but in the last few cycles, it's been registering more and more Democrats. And that's made Bucks a stronger and stronger swing county. And that's why it's gray on the map. It didn't overwhelmingly support Democrats or Republicans in the 2020 statewide races. And as far as Congress goes, unfortunately, the Democratic quote unquote moderate candidate wins repeatedly. And also, unfortunately, Bucks saw a very strong Republican turnout in the state level races last year. And this recent dip makes it all the more important for us to get Democrats registered and rally support for our candidates in the coming election. And we've already gotten a lot of help from local political organizers within Bucks who've gotten ready for us as soon as we're ready. And we've already begun setting up our first canvassing expedition on February 26th. Bucks is only about 2 hours by car from New York, and it's also possible to get there by train. New Jersey transit is cheap, much cheaper than Amtrak, which you can also take. It's a little faster to Trenton. And oftentimes campaign offices will pick you up there by car. And again, we're going to be very COVID conscious about everything. There's great canvassing turf there when we start going door to door. The towns of Levittown and Bristol are pretty compact door to door territory so that you can get a lot of houses done in a limited amount of time. Now, this map shows that despite the recent dip that I was describing, when it comes to these really critical races that Hope was going over, the Senate and governor races this year, we're really, really encouraged about Bucks. And also Lehigh County, where we may go later in the year, which is just north of it. In both those places, you can see that in 2020 compared to 2016, in the presidential election, this is comparing how Clinton and Biden's races against Trump, that the Democrats did much better in 2020 compared to 2016. In Bucks, Biden was 4 percentage points ahead compared to Clinton's 1%, and in Lehigh, 7% ahead compared to And these are swing counties. These are counties that often vote Republican in other kinds of lower profile races. So we have a lot to be encouraged about. And in this map, this is also really encouraging because this map shows these counties where they're trending in terms of their vote share statewide. And it shows that both these places, but especially Bucks, has become more and more important as a source of state votes. In other words, a higher percentage of the state vote has been coming from Bucks and also from Lehigh over time, so that there's this shift from light green to dark green means that proportionately, Bucks has been accounting for a larger share of the Pennsylvania vote, and this movement in Lehigh from sort of faint orange to white also means that it's been trending that way. So both these places are sort of high impact counties to be working in. And Lehigh also is really a promising place to work because it did fabulously well in its county school board races, sweeping them all in 2021, and was one of the only counties in all of Pennsylvania to do so. So we're very excited about both these places. And
yeah, so thank you, Ruth. I was just going to summarize what our plan is, or our game plan is. We're going to target Pennsylvania with Vote Forward letters. We're going to go in person right away to Bucks, where they're ready for us as soon as we want to go. And we are going to start February 26th, which is a Saturday, end of February. And partner with local organizations and coordinated campaigns. We're going to do high traffic, we're going to do door knocking, and all of these voters are in those super duper areas where they can pull the lever for senator, governor, state house and or state senate. And in Lehigh, we also can help protect a US House seat. So I just want to call out, if you are a driver in New York City or New Jersey, closer to Pennsylvania, we could really use you, and we're going to actually be sharing a way you can share your information with us. So please start thinking, could you possibly bring people with you in a COVID conscious way? The more cars we have, the more work we can do. I also wanted to say, planning your year, looking ahead here at the end of January, 3-day weekends, vacations, spend them in lovely Pennsylvania. We can reach out to our local partners, help arrange lodging possibly, and connect you with the campaigns for sure, who can put you to great work for some of that vacation. And we can really make a difference by using all the free time we can by getting into Pennsylvania. I also want to call out a partner we were really excited to learn about and are still learning about, but the New Pennsylvania Project was founded on the model and with credit to the New Georgia Project. And they are here to engage and empower young residents and those living in underrepresented and often neglected communities of color and immigrant communities. So one of the communities that fell behind the most in voter registration, most precipitously, was the Hispanic and African American communities in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and statewide. So this is a really great organization to look into, supporting with your dollars, supporting with your time, and we may be able to partner with them at some point also in Bucks, which is one of the areas that they do work. So we're really eager to look into them some more. And I wanted to just give a quick call out. We'll go into these in more detail in a second. But in addition to all of that, the letters, the Pennsylvania voter registration trips, we're also about to start offering here in February, while it's so cold, we can't go to Pennsylvania right away. We're going to start running some skills building workshops that we think are going to be really helpful for us all to tune up our skills We're going to run a lot of workshops to help you craft your personal story for a vote forward letter. Whether you've done those a million times or you're brand new to that tactic, this workshop will, it's really easy and we'll walk you through it. We're going to also explore the principles and techniques of deep canvassing, which we'll talk about more in a second, but it's a persuasive technique for our door knocking, also our phone banking, our letters, anywhere really. And there's a very, very cool event happening on February 27th, where we're going to play a climate simulations game together that we'll talk more about in a second, where we can learn about climate policies. So we're ready to talk to voters for whom climate is top of mind, especially youth voters. And then finally, coming soon, not in February, but probably in March, we're going to run a workshop on the race class narrative, which is an empirically based technique for cutting through dog whistle racism when we're talking to undecided voters, countering disinformation. I'll talk more about that in a second too. But I just wanted to wet your whistle for those before asking you to commit to take action with us. On this screen, you can see our calendar for what we're doing, and also a link that we're going to put in the chat where you can let us know your plan for action. And we will be sharing links for signing up for the workshops in just a minute, Joseph, so don't worry. We definitely want all of you there. But right now, I'd love if you could open this link. And David, actually, I apologize. Can you create a version of that link that has the https:// so it will be active for folks? I didn't do that in the prep. So one of the things that we wanted to do today is share with you all of these high impact opportunities and then learn from you what you want to be doing. And I will pass, I would love to just loop in with Jason and Leslie while people are opening that up. And maybe we could also revisit some of the questions that people may have been sharing in the chat that are coming up a lot. I know there've been a lot of questions.
Sure. So a lot of questions about the choices for different races, like overall, like why have we made those choices, with specific references to Joseph asking where's Stacy, John asking what about Iowa, Evelyn referring to New York 22, Bill talking about the Arizona Secretary of State, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, there is so much that is great to do this year. I will share a couple observations. One is, anytime I've ever reached out to Swing Left and said, what about Arizona? What about New Mexico? I'm reassured that California has that covered. Like, they have some House races this year, but there's a ton of progressives in California and the entire West. So I would not recommend that people based on the East Coast do virtual volunteering on the West Coast. Vote forward letters is another matter. I'm not sure if it's the case for that, but I would focus closer, which is why that's what we're doing as a group. So we may be increasing our adoptions of states and districts as we move into the year. This is our beginning commitment, our commitments as a group. We're waiting to hear, actually, and waiting to see how many people are getting engaged right out of the gate, which we really hope that you will, because this year we don't have any time to waste. How many people are we all bringing to our events? One of the most high impact things I forgot to mention that you all can do is reaching out to your networks and bringing them to events. Recruiting more volunteers is going to be key. So let me know if I've adequately answered that question as far as how we made our initial decisions. There's a lot of Stacy we love and would love at some point to support. We can't be as impactful with virtual work, like virtual phone banking, any phone banking, other than letters. So we may actually decide to adopt Georgia as a group for letters, as well as Pennsylvania, for example, and North Carolina. We may make some choices that we recommend to people, which letters you write. But we're trying to use every hour to get as much done as we can. And there's only certain windows where phone banking is going to be the highest impact, like right before the primary or right before the election. So that was how we made our choices.
Thanks, Hope. A question about texting. Why aren't we doing that, or should we be doing that?
You know, the data, again, that we get from Swing Left suggests that texting is just not as effective as the letters or going in person. So not to cast shade on any activity that anybody loves doing, but to the extent that there's a choice to be made, we're going to encourage you to be writing letters and going in person. I did see that Steve shared some really interesting perspectives in the chat about some cases where texting may be extremely useful, like checking someone's registration status. You know, I can't speak to all instances of efficacy. I'm just really taking my cues from Swing Left. But there may be some cases where texting is extremely strategic.
A question about college campuses and the role that they can play.
Yeah, you know, we did some midweek organizing in 18 on community college campuses for voter registration, and it was enormously successful. The problem is it needs to be midweek by and large. So we're going to take cues from our in-state partners, and there's much for us to learn. We're really just getting our feet wet and our bearings in terms of all the options that are on the table. But yes, those are very, very good places to go. And
go
ahead.
Really important question from Alicia. She says I will take action by only allows for one answer. What if we have more than one? Should we just pick our top one?
Oh no, thank you for calling that out. Let me go change that right now.
Yeah, we want more than one.
Definitely. Sorry, everybody. So I will take action. It's saying multiple choice. You're saying I will take action is only letting you choose one? Just want to clarify. Is that the question where it was?
That is the question. Alicia, I don't know if you can clarify what's happening when you go in there, but yeah, apparently that's an issue.
I just refreshed. Hit refresh. Try hitting refresh yourself. Maybe I had changed that one, but it didn't save.
And some people already submitted, but it only let them choose one.
I'm so sorry to hear that. We know, and you know, what you wanted to actually commit to, so we may have missed out on information because of that technical glitch. I'm just trying to look and see if all of these are correctly formatted. It looks like the rest are. And I did see a question about postcards as well. I'll say that, you know, what the Analyst Institute tells Swing Left, and they're a very prestigious left-leaning progressive data source. They've done studies looking at all of the postcard data, and they say it doesn't perform as well as our letters do. So we are not prioritizing postcards. I know campaigns sometimes ask volunteers to do their postcards, and sometimes that's a good thing to support. And there may be organizations that have data backing it up and saying, you know, they're able to do as effective a job in turning people out. But my secret feeling as somebody who works in advertising is engaging with the letter where you're opening it, where there's just a higher level of commitment to like what the volunteer has done in sending something that you have to open, as opposed to a postcard that already feels more disposable. That's just my theory. But I want to make sure if we can actually, we will have time after we wrap for anybody who wants to stay for the after party and talk even more. But I do want to make sure that we have time to talk about our workshops in detail, and we also had intended to do breakout rooms. So let's keep it moving.
Sorry, just one thing.
Yes.
Someone suggested that there's an other box on there, and that you can, if you have not submitted yet, you can put things in the other box.
That's
so
a
for
great
those who are
solution.
able, please do.
Thank you. And I'm sorry about that technical glitch. You all saw it right there on the screen. It says multiple choice on my end, so I don't know how to fix it right now, unfortunately. We are at 1:18, so let's go ahead. I'd love for people to have a chance to talk with one another about the feelings, the thoughts, the commitments that you're making. Jason, do you want to go ahead and we'll start those breakout rooms, and we'll just...
I think we're all back.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and resume sharing the slides. And real quickly, because I know we're near our time, thank you for all coming together to hear us today and in the breakout rooms to talk with one another. about your plans for 2022. I wanted to just, before we dive into the workshop, say, restate that, all of our decisions also keep as our top goal in mind succeeding at the federal level in the midterms. So holding the House, winning more seats in the Senate, and protecting and winning in the governor's mansions because of concerns about our democracy. So while there are so many things happening this year, just wanted to restate that that's our guiding principle in how we made our choices. And now, team, unfortunately, we're going to need to try to do our pitch in like 1 minute per workshop because of the time. But we've already talked a lot about the efficacy of personal stories and about this workshop. So I'm going to actually just leave it there and say in just a second, we're going to share the links for all of these. But anytime you can find any of our events, actually, all of our events, at our shortlit link, bit.ly/T-majority for our name, Target Majority. David, go ahead and take it from here.
Okay. David, deep canvassing, something you may have heard of. It is an evolution in the way we talk to voters, whether it's on phone banks or whether it's in person. Basically, it attempts to, for us, the volunteers, to establish a rapport with a voter and to try to get them to tell us what they're feeling and thinking about, and find out what's important to them. Both to find out true facts, but also to establish some kind of empathetic connection with them, and using that information to kind of subtly guide them around to thinking in ways that are supportive of what we're trying to do. And it sounds a little maybe new agey or something, but it's actually a very, very rewarding way to connect with people. And there are a number of very, very simple exercises that we can take you through and show you what this is. And as I said, it's a little subtle almost, but it is really rewarding and it's really effective. So it's called Deep Canvassing, and I won't go. It's got a kind of a long background, last few years. But it's been proven to be very effective. So if you're interested in finding out better ways to talk to people, that would be awesome. Thank you.
And Mary Ellen, can you unmute? Oh, you know what? Mary Ellen may not have been made a co-host. We need to unmute her. Ken, go ahead and hop in if need be. Sorry, everybody.
Oh, I think she's a co-host now.
Great.
Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Mary Ellen, and Ken Hammond and I, along with Peter Matt, are working on climate. And what this workshop is, it comes out of an offering from MIT and an organization called Climate Interactive. And if you've ever wondered, what are the policies that are really going to make a difference in terms of the United States and other countries meeting the Paris Agreement, which is staying between 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius warming, this is the workshop for you. Also, if you've ever had phone banking situations where people have asked you questions about climate, is it real? Are these policies going to make a difference? Aren't they going to destroy jobs? This is a really good place for you to come and learn some key facts, experience it yourself, because all the participants are going to get in dirty. They're going to play around with a simulator, and they're going to learn exactly how, with the latest science and the latest models from leading economists and scientists, they're going to learn what really is going to make a difference. So I hope you all can make it. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And the last one, which again is not going to be in February, but hopefully in March, is, as I mentioned, about the race class narrative, which is an empirically tested approach to persuading people on race and class that neutralizes the use of dog whistle racism. It's going to be really helpful for us encountering disinformation, such as we saw in Virginia, and breaking through apathy and negativity as well to register and activate voters. So you will hear more about that from us as we actually have it calendared. I'm hoping to get an expert in to walk us through it. It's really fascinating stuff and really encouraging, I would say. So the last thing is just please do join us again soon in February. Here are the links and the dates for all of these workshops. The personal story letter workshop is offered at least 4 times in February. Right now we've got 1 opportunity with the other 3 and 1 trip for voter registration so far. Planning to do that probably twice a month starting in March as well. So it is 1:32. We almost hit our time, but really appreciate everyone staying with us for that extra bit of time, and also want to stick around and do more Q&A in what I'm calling the after party. So why don't we go ahead and, oh, David, I just realized that the links didn't carry through there. So let's just put a link to our group page, because all of these workshops, as well as the letter parties we already have scheduled, because we do have some scheduled for late February and March. You can sign up for everything we've got on the calendar at one convenient link. And I'll just put it here. Yeah. There you go. Actually, yes, so I'm also, in addition to the survey, which David just put in the chat, I'm also going to put our group page there. And that's how you sign up for all the workshops, letter parties, the voter registration day that we've got scheduled so far. I'm so happy to see people expressing their excitement in the chat. Thank you. And if you all, as you go, if you wanted to share like closing feelings and thoughts, that would be so inspiring. I'm sorry that we weren't able to have more interaction on this call. We had a lot we wanted to share. We are definitely looking forward to digging in with all of you. And we will stay for a few more minutes. I can stay till 1:45, so I know there were some questions we couldn't get to. But yay, thank you everybody for the feedback. It's so great to see. Yes, can't wait to see you in person. Excellent. Go ahead, let's start, Jason and Leslie, if there were some, real high relevancy questions that came up again and again in the chat. Maybe we can knock out a couple of those while we're letting people go and seeing their closing feelings and thoughts in the chat.
A request for free stamps and making sure that there are free stamps for the letter writing parties and other supplies so that we make it easier for people.
Yes, very excited. Actually, I don't know if Noelle is still on this call, but we have a member of our team who just last year donated a wealth of stamps from her father's stamp collection. And so we're using those right now, and we do have some funds that we can also use to purchase stamps and provide to people. We definitely don't want stamps to be a barrier to anybody writing and stockpiling as many of these insanely effective letters all year as possible. They're even fun, we find them fun to do while we're watching Rachel Maddow, or I actually like doing it while I'm phone banking, but that's a little crazy. So I'm like writing, hello. But my point is, yes, we actually have another incredible member, Ed, who in 2020 was printing out and mailing hundreds of letters across the country to people who reached out to us when we offered and said, I would write these, but I can't afford the paper, or I don't have a printer. We sent them, 200 letters if they wanted. So yes, we're definitely planning to keep that up.
Also a comment on that, don't people throw it away as junk mail? Don't they never open it?
Of course, some people do. But think about, I'll give you an example. My partner and I somehow got on a list with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and we opened at least 3 of their letters before returning them unopened and saying return to sender, not interested in our household in joining the Jehovah's Witnesses. And but we did open like 2 or 3 of them, because you never know who's writing you an envelope that's handwritten. So eventually I learned, the name or the address of the return address and just like sent it back. But people, I think, do mostly open these. Whether they get them to vote, we know by the data, a lot of them do.
Hope, question from Debbie about if we want to register students on campus, how does somebody get involved in that?
Yes. Well, we're talking about Pennsylvania. Basically, reaching out to whatever state it is, reaching out to organizations who are organizing in that area. So in Pennsylvania, it's turned PA Blue, is doing a ton. We would be happy to put you in touch with partners in Pennsylvania. We have some partners in New Jersey as well.
I mean, actually, I'm in Manhattan and I work at FIT, but there are students from all over the country there. So,
right. Well, that's very true.
yeah.
Registering to vote involves that state's registration form, although a lot of things moved online. So it'd be really interesting. You could go to iwillvote.com, and this is just me thinking out loud, but if you know that a lot of your students are from particular states, I don't know if that's the case, but you could look at whether those states have online registration to vote. But otherwise, it might be a little tricky to be like a one-size-fits-all voter registration table. But I think most do
because a lot of them would have to do absentee voting, I would think.
Which we have the time, for them to arrange to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think if you were going to do something at like a New York campus and you had a computer or laptop so that you sort of knew the main registration links for each state you could send them to. Or that iwillvote.com might be essential.
Okay.
Yes, iwillvote.com is a great central resource for voter registration.
All right, thank you.
A broader question that came earlier about, how do we find the right balance between current races and future campaign infrastructure building?
How do we find the balance between the races running now
and
building infrastructure for later? Well, I think that there's sort of two answers that come to mind for me about that. One is our house is on fire, and I am more focused on right now than I am on the long range issues because it's so sobering. But I also think that anytime we are supporting the state legislative candidates and campaigns, we are helping build infrastructure, which needs to be done in our Democratic state ledge. Our Democratic Party is not as supportive as I wish it was of our state ledge races. So that's one area where I know, candidates that run multiple times are picking up skills, are building their networks. And so even if they don't win this time, they have a better shot next time. That's one example. But in terms of the grassroots, was this more about grassroots volunteerism or campaigns?
Perhaps volunteerism. I think it was grassroots infrastructure building. Those were the words.
Yeah, I think that honestly, like the relationships that we form with each other is a big part of what I feel we can directly impact on that front. And the people who are on the core team today, some joined in 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And honestly, we would love for any of you to also join our core team, which is why that question is on the survey. And then we become better and better organizers as a team. We run more and more events. So that's one way.
And we hope that we're cautious of the Sabbath and we make sure that we're doing things particularly on the weekends, more on a Sunday or giving Sunday options.
Yeah, well, we're running all of our workshops on Sundays. And right now in Bucks, I know that the voter registration drive that they are organizing is on Saturdays. So there may be more trips to Pennsylvania at first on Saturdays, but we have historically seen a lot of people like to go on Sundays. So, and the campaigns will be running events both weekend days, and probably Bucks will soon as well, but that's just what they're doing right out of the gate. So yes, definitely feel like that's always important. And Joseph, I'm not sure which February 12th in-person organizing event you're talking about. I saw in the chat. Oh, and the question in the chat about signing up on our group page, if you scroll down past joining the group, you'll see a list of the events that should be there. I pushed them public. Jason, do you want to check our group page and just confirm everything is showing? It should be. Joseph, please use the chat, or I'm going to allow, we're a nice manageable group now. I'm going to allow folks to unmute themselves. What event are you talking about, Joseph?
I'm just looking at my mobilized page to make sure the things I just signed up for came in, and I stumbled on, I was reminded, Saturday, February 12th, 3 o'clock, Swing Left NYC 2020 kickoff.
Oh, yes. Well,
In
that's
person.
another, yes,
Oh,
that's
sorry,
another.
wait. It says the event is full, sorry.
That's okay, that's okay. And you've just attended an equivalent meeting, so that's no worries. All of us Swing Left groups, and it's a little confusing that their name is Swing Left NYC. They're one of a handful of different Swing Left groups in New York City. So we're all running kickoffs, this weekend and over the next couple of weeks to share the kind of information that we went over today.
Thank you, Hope.
For sure. Good to see you. Joseph was one of our behind the scenes event managers in 2020. One of the ways that we could definitely use help again in 22 if you're interested in helping make things happen. I see a question about Indivisible, and I saw a question early in the call too. I just want to say, so we're a hybrid group. We take cues and answer calls to action from Indivisible as well as Swing Left. This being such a massive election year, we're more going to be pursuing a Swing Left playbook. Indivisible is actually adopting a little bite-sized version of the Swing Left playbook, which is essentially, the Swing Left playbook is, okay, so you're in a true blue area. What can you do that's more effective even than just focusing in your own district? What can you do to push back on Trump, on the Trump GOP? Go work, go volunteer, give your labor to swing districts nearby. So Indivisible has actually created their Give No Ground campaign, where they are for the first time encouraging their members to go volunteer out of their own district. Usually they're very focused in district. So we're going to be mostly doing Swing Left work this year, but always around climate, voting rights, racial justice. We also do a lot of coalition building through Indivisible. And let's see, are there other, I think we're almost at the time, where we should probably close this meeting, but I see so many of you sticking around. Does somebody have a burning desire to ask a question we haven't addressed? You're able to unmute yourself now. Really appreciate you all being here. All right. Well, if there aren't burning desires, Leslie or Jason, was there anything else real top of mind from the chat throughout the meeting?
Sorry, Hope, there is a question, will a recording be made available? And I was actually wondering the same thing, because I've been texting with a friend who was a big organizer in the last election, and
Fantastic.
she's like, where can I see the recording?
That's great. I'm gonna actually stop recording right now. And